Coogs house. In round two of Houston and Oklahoma State, things got a little bit ugly on the hardwood, but Houston came out on top. Oh, and there's this football schedule.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougars, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Angels. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, because you're making us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougars. And we're joining the conversation, but you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below what you thought of Houston Oklahoma State round two, as Houston comes out on top 72-63. Now, folks at home know that I normally do a live show post game. If you're new to the show, I typically do a live show post game. I should probably clarify that. But again, Houston-born teacher and coach. The team I was coaching tipped off at 6:30. This game tipped off at 7. I got to see the last few minutes live, but then I went back and rewatched it afterwards at night. And I'm recording this after the fact. That's why things are a little bit later. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, though. A lot of fun on that one later as we get into things. But I want to talk about this one with a reaction as if it were live. Just kind of talk about what my first thoughts were on Houston and Oklahoma State round two. Some new stuff I saw on the floor happening. Some limited bodies probably forced that a little bit, honestly, but new things looked like that Houston was doing out there. And then I did want to talk some at first glances at the football schedule that came out on Tuesday in the final segment. It'll also probably stand alone if you're finding it on YouTube later. I want to just save that one. But first things first, Houston comes out on top again, 72-63. Good guys in this one. Houston improves 18-4, 10-1 in the conference. Oklahoma State falls to 500, 11-11. In looking at this one, I think it's worth pointing out that Houston looked exhausted. And we talked about on the end of the day on Saturday when Houston lost to Texas Tech, that they looked exhausted, and Houston continued to look exhausted in this one. They were down 19, they were on 18-9. I'm sorry, early. They were killing offensive rebounds, great positioning, great reading the ball off the rim, etc. They just could not find the inside of the basket. Did not help that Oklahoma State shot 51% from the field on what I would say were mostly challenging looks. For reference, that's a team that shoots 42.6% from the field on the year. And extra reference, I guess, when these two teams played up in Stillwater, Oklahoma State shot to 25.9% from the field. Much better shooting night for Oklahoma State. And I think most shots felt similar to the first game. There were a couple times, one time where like Jawan got stuck in mud on the perimeter, or, helping the helper misses back cut late or something, that were, again, tired mistakes that helped improve that percentage a little bit. But to, more than double it from the first matchup between these two is also, I think, a testament to like, hey, they were just a little more in sync. Things were falling for them, and Houston was just like a half step slow a lot of different places. Still came out on top. Things were down for Houston, but Oklahoma State looked pretty strong. Generally speaking, fighting through that tiredness. They did shoot 41% from the field, which is a little bit lower than their season averages. But a way that I think that illustrates this, that Houston had a lot of points in the paint, 32 of their 72, but they had no fast break points. And what this is indicative of is a lot of half court sets that get you into the paint and get easy shots, or offensive rebounds and easy shots. And that's what Houston was doing. And both of those, I think, point to Houston playing with tired legs, right? Because they forced 11 turnovers, but didn't get to get out and run on them. They didn't really push the pace on it either. Offensive rebounds, Houston did great on the offensive glass in this one. Great on the glass in general, I should say, but on the offensive glass specifically, Houston had 18 offensive rebounds and had 13, if I'm not mistaken, in the first half. And again, for how few points they had at halftime, I think that's really kind of more of a sign of, honestly, they were just taking third and fourth chances to get the ball in the rim. They're playing well, just could not get the ball in the basket. Felt like tired legs. For what it's worth, I think Milos Uzan, the point guard, probably has his own complaints about that, because he had 5 assists, and that's when he probably could have had 8 or 9, if not 10, if guys made shots when they're open the first time. But But Houston was a little tired. They played 3 games with 2 long road trips in the previous 8 days. Uh, had a hard practice Sunday and got ready to play. I got spent money getting ready to play and then played on Tuesday. They're going to take a needed Wednesday off. I believe per NCAA rules, you got to take 24 hours off between activities at some point anyway. So no formal team activities. I imagine Wednesday, Thursday practice, Friday practice and flight. Get to Colorado, play Colorado on Saturday, and that's hopefully a contest that Houston can continue to kind of play a lot of guys in and that kind of stuff. Colorado's not been great thus far, but then I mean, you can take them lightly, I don't guess. Houston was missing 2 of the 8-man rotation they had in this one. For what it's worth, Mercy Miller and Ced Lott stepped in and played a few minutes here and there and looked fine. Neither one of them played all that much, but looked fine. I think Mercy's problem is really he's in a really packed guard room. And then Ced with, foul trouble to JoJo and a JVR injury, got on the floor a little bit more. On those injuries, it sounds like Sharp's at least resting through the weekend and going to get to Monday when Houston, I believe, plays Baylor, which is fine. I got to heal that ankle. Hadn't really quite gotten right in that one. And then I think so. They haven't really said what's happening with JVR. If I were a gambling person, it looks like the kind of thing that he might have a concussion, just based on how he got hit on Saturday and how he, was kind of on the floor for a second and then got up and walked out, never walked back, and all of that. He showed up to the game. It sounds like a little before tip off. They were saying on the telecast. And typically, I know every sport's a little different and every body's a little different. They say concussion's at least a week before you can really even think about it. Saturday to Saturday would mean he's not playing against Colorado. I would imagine that they take that rest and get to Monday and Baylor if they can. Not because Monday night's like 2B night or whatever, although Big Monday is a big deal. But honestly, I think more so because you don't want to force something and may exacerbate or make it worse and have them out for a long time, which would be really easy to do if they try to rush things back on that one. Now, no one said he has that, so that's totally me projecting. That's just kind of what it looked like happened. Glancing blow to the front of the face, kind of jerked his neck funny. I think that's all bad. Either way, that does mean he's resting his own legs, which is probably a good thing. Sharp is resting his body up as well. The rest of these guys need to continue to rest up as we get ready for the second half of Big 12 play because they've got a gauntlet coming up. They go from hosting Baylor, I should say, to Arizona. Then they go to Arizona State. And I think they're going to try and come back to Houston in between because it's the 15th and the 18th. That's kind of an awkward amount of time. Come home to play a top 10 Iowa State team, and then you go to Lubbock to play Tech. And if you thought things got easier after that, they don't. You host Cincinnati, host Kansas, and then head over to Waco to wrap up Big 12 play. So their second half is a little more challenging than their first half, using this week to, kind of trying to rest your guys and try and, take a day off here, maybe take a lot more shots on this day as opposed to running and stuff like that. It's going to be important. The over under this game was set at like 21 and a half. It was like over 20. I think it was 21 and a half. And I think Houston, from a talent perspective, even without 2 of the guys in the rotation, is over 20 points better than Oklahoma State. But when you factor in the exhaustion and where you're at in the season and the injuries and the nagging, I mean, Jawan Roberts plays with his ankle deal. We don't really know what diagnosis is on that from a Saturday, but his ankle touched earth and he's out here playing. So I'd imagine that part of the reason they failed to get to that over under mark was entirely because the plus minus, I guess I should say, entirely because of the wear and tear on the bodies right now. And so Houston's going to get some much needed rest, but that doesn't mean they didn't try some new stuff in this game. I want to talk about what kind of schematic things I noticed that were a little bit different against Oklahoma State this time versus the first time versus even as recently as Saturday. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, 2 Big 12 quarterbacks, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to get in on the action, make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature, should say, lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 back in bonus bets for the Super Bowl is icing on the cake. Download the app today or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Just bet $5. If you win, you get $200 back in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Park Ranger locked on Coogs strong. Houston beating Oklahoma State 72-63 in round 2 of this matchup. Admittedly, I tripped over Roman numerals a second ago, but Roman numerals aren't new. There was some stuff in this game that was new. Transition. I think it's interesting to watch what Houston does when they're down people. I thought that was interesting a couple years ago when they were trying to play without Marcus. It was such a big part of the team for the show, right? Obviously, watching without Tremont, Mark, and Marcus the year before. As recently as last year, didn't have to play a whole lot of games without Shed. They played half a game without Shed, but you also had the games without JoJo and to kind of insert himself into a prominent role. You saw this team play games without Jawan while he was healing up his leg and his hand, right? And kind of seeing what they do at different points. In this game, without Javier Francis, I think it was interesting. So a lot of smaller lineups, right, with 4 guards around either Roberts, Tugler, or at some point Sedlot. And what was interesting to me, someone who coached some basketball, is that they used JoJo Tugler in a lot more of Jawan Roberts kind of roles. It felt like on Tuesday night, out of the top of the key, involved in handoffs, kind of involved more playmaking kind of stuff. And he made the right decision a lot of times. Looked kind of like he'd been doing it a long time. I don't know a whole lot of people over in Cyprus as far as where he was playing his high school ball, but it felt like he'd done a lot of that before. It looks very natural for him. And so what I mean by that is they put him at the top of the key, give him the ball, and like guard to kind of run off handoffs. Not quite like a scissoring action, but like if Milos entered it to him at the top of the key, then Milos would be like running off and like take a handoff potentially, and he could like ball fake it and keep it, or he could hand it off or whatever. And he was making pretty good decisions up there. I thought the wingspan added to his ability to kind of like yank the ball back pretty quickly, actually. But I thought it opened up Milos Uzan. I thought it opened up LJ Cryer a couple different times. Malik Wilson had pretty good actions on it. I think Terrence Arsenal even had an action on it as well. All those small ball kind of things. And what's fascinating about that is like it took Jawan Roberts a long time to get there as a playmaker. A lot of working with Sampson and Sampson. Both Sampsons helping him out with that and kind of developing into that guy. And it's kind of crazy to me that a guy like JoJo Tugler, who is just a crazy athlete and has kind of developed his game, is already kind of molding his way into that. Props to Kellen Sampson and the post development that he has going. Quite a string of pretty strong post players for that guy. But really, really interesting to see Tugler turn into that. He had like a short drive. He had a handoff into a short roll. He got it right back on a give and go. He hit the low post one time when he and Roberts were both in, and then cut back door. Roberts missed him on the pass, but it was a great cut and read, I thought. Not a pass you see Roberts miss very often. And frankly, the duality of him being able to do that as well as Roberts gives you a lot more flexibility in some 2-post lineups, the high-low stuff. You can really kind of get side to side with it. It opens up some flexibility in lineups. You can go high 1-post 4 guards with Terrence and Malik, which they did a lot more on Tuesday. They kind of got away from recently. And I think just it's a good thing for this team to have posts that can play out there, because it opens up a lot of the things that these guards want to do as far as driving from the slots or the wings out on the outside. And then the kickouts end up being your corner spots, which Cryer's great at. I think Arsenal shoots better from the corner too. I don't have any data actually, so I can probably look that up. But it feels like he shoots better from the corner. I feel like I can like visually think of more threes that go in from there for him. And I think it's important to have those posts involved. Now, the other thing I think that felt new, but it's really just because of how starkly opposed it was to Saturday was that Milos was um, super, super clean. And he'd been playing really well in Big 12 play and had the big step backwards, I thought, against Texas Tech. And then, man, he looked good. Um, I I wonder if he'd call him the most important Cougar on the floor on Tuesday. He finished, I guess, the stat line that would be close to it: 17 points, 5 assists, a couple rebounds. But I think the most important part of his game was that he had the 5 assists and no turnovers. After Texas Tech turned him over a lot, he had 4 in that game. To have none today to kind of bounce back was a big deal for him. I think it mostly stemmed from him being aggressive downhill. Wasn't that high post action we talked about with Tugler or whatever he was doing to get the ball? He was attacking the gaps, meaning he was attacking like downhill in the lane. And I thought he did a great job of identifying where his help defender was going to be and like putting him in conflict, right? Attacking him, making him make decisions. And then once the guy's in conflict, just making the right read. I mentioned the first segment, but I'll say it again. I think Milos has every right to be upset because he had 5 assists, no turnovers, and he probably had 3 or 4 other passes that should have been assists. Open corner Crier 3 or hitting a post by the basket. They throw out the backboard themselves kind of in a herky-jerky kind of way. Um, just stuff that you think Houston's going to make typically. And so really, really impressed with him tonight. And frankly, I said it last night, I guess, at the point, but listen to this. And really, really big bounce back game from him. Um, also, for its worth, I think part of the aggression from him was because they had a lot of 4 guard lineups. And when you have the 4 guard small ball lineup with Arsenal and Malik both on the floor, as they had a lot in this game, mostly because Sharp wasn't healthy, right? So that meant Malik got more of those minutes. Malik played 23 minutes in this one. Um, the length and speed of those two, Malik Wilson, Terrence Arsenault, creates incredibly hectic defense, just constant pressure, a lot of gambling and poking into lanes to deflect passes, and like they have the length and speed to get to them. So like I think they got the green light on that. It's almost like they call, I don't know what their calls are. We go like 50, 51 and a half court, 100, 101 in full court, and that kind of stuff. And like adding the one on the end is like turn it up a notch. And we play a little more intensity, a little more trapping, that kind of stuff. And so the first digit's the defense, the second, if it's got a one at the end, we're turning it up. It felt like whenever Malik and Terrence were in, it was like blah, blah, one. They were turning it up a notch with those guys in the game. Um, really, really taking more shots at getting the ball back for Houston. Again, they only turned Oklahoma State over 11 times. I'd probably say they also probably made Oklahoma State take 3 or 4 ill-advised shots too that kind of functionally felt like turnovers but weren't. Um, but man, I feel like they really kind of had control of the pace of this game. Really, really good game out of the small ball guard lineup. And frankly, I think a game you'll see a lot against Colorado as well. Anecdotally, I haven't like studied Colorado. I watched them play a little bit in passing. They can get really sloppy, and so having some speed, having some length into turnovers. I've learned my lesson about predicting games. I'm not sure I'm going to go through and predict what's going to happen in this one. I thought Oklahoma State and Houston would be a 15-point win for the Cougs. It was not. I thought Texas Tech could be a double-digit win for the Cougs, and it was not. I'm just going to stop predicting, I think, at this point. But either way, I think Colorado, the 4 guard lineup, could really turn them up and turn them over a lot. So we'll see how that one goes. We'll talk more about basketball this week. I don't mean to get past it too much, but the other big Houston news from Tuesday was the football schedule getting released. And so I want to talk about that a little bit as well. But first, Park Rangers are locked on Coogs here talking about Houston's football schedule. Yes, they played a basketball game Tuesday night, but the 2025 football schedule was officially released. Now, we kind of had some inklings about parts of this. We knew that week 1, they're playing Stephen F. Austin. Week 2, they're playing Rice. Week 4, they're playing Oregon State. That's all non-conference games that we knew were happening. It got leaked earlier in the week that Houston was playing Colorado on September 13th. Primetime Deion Sanders kind of things get leaked a little bit earlier. So let's go through the schedule a little bit, and then I want to talk about who I think wins what game. Stephen F. Austin game opens the season. Houston should win that one. Interesting to me, though, it's getting played on August 28th, which is Thursday. which a little bit different, right? A little bit different. With the opening season on a Thursday. Nice part about that is you don't feel like you have a short week for a Thursday if it's the first game of the season, right? You can just get ready for that all the way through. And so I think that should work fine. To play at Rice on September 6th. I think they should handle that one as well. Rice is going to be starting over. It's weird too with Willie Fritz. And, Rice did get us a couple years ago, but I think Houston should be fine there. Colorado, we'll know a lot more about once we see them play a game. A lot of transfer guys in. They have like a 5-star freshman, I want to say. But reason to feel good about that one. It is a Big 12 program. It's a Big 12 game. But, it's not like you're playing a team that I think is going to have a shot at the Big 12 championship next year, but we'll see. Now they're going to because I said that, I guess. And then at Oregon State on September 27th. Oregon State is a good program. I think technically still counts as a Power 4 program, but it's not a world beater or anything like that. You host Texas Tech, which will be interesting given the way the basketball programs have gone. Texas Tech can be an in-state rival if they want to make it that. But honestly, I got to look up a lot of the guys in that Texas Tech roster that had a bunch of money spent in the transfer portal. And so we'll see how that money turns into stuff. But man, that's an interesting game, week 5, interesting 5th game of the season right there. Then you're at Oklahoma State on October 11th. Oklahoma State was really good the last time you played them 2 years ago and really bad last year, and you didn't get to play them. So we'll see what they look like next year. I think Houston should be, if Weckman's like what we think he is, I think he'll be okay in that one. Oklahoma State's doing a lot of starting over, new coordinators, new roster with NIL money and all that. It's kind of Gundy's like do or die moment. So there's going to be desperation there for them. October 18th, you got Arizona at home. After going out there last year and playing a late night game, get to host the Arizona Wildcats. I will say I felt confident going into last year, so I should open this up with that. I feel like Houston did better than transfer portal than they did. And I feel like Houston was already bringing back a lot of talent too. So I think Arizona's something I feel right about. Arizona State, it's all about how you replace the production they had last year. They had a magical run last year, got to overtime of the college football playoff quarterfinal. And really, I think that's kind of the like MO for a lot of these teams in the Big 12 was trying to like follow that, like the way that went for them, right? Predicted to be bottom of the conference, ran to the top and ran away with it. Now, next season, I will say, we saw Oklahoma State have a really strong 2023 and then not win a conference game in 2024. I'm not predicting to be that bad for Arizona State, but I do think that topsy-turviness is what these big conferences are built for now, where you don't quite always play everyone and can change up what your schedule looks like. I'm not going to be scared of Arizona State yet. I will say that Levitt kid at quarterback is really good. And so it could be a fun shootout, maybe. We'll see. West Virginia comes to Houston on November 1st. Mostly it might be just good vibes from the last time Houston played West Virginia in Houston, but feeling all right about that one. At UCF in Orlando, they're making that their space game in Orlando. I said 2 years ago, one of my bigger Dana Holgerson rants was when he tried to act like UCF was ahead of Houston as a program. I maintain that the UCFs, the BYUs, the Cincinnati's, sorts of programs you need to feel like you're at least on the same page as, because you all enter the conference the same way at the same time. I don't know why we should be scared of that one if Wegman's all right, but we'll see. TCU beat a year ago. TCU got a lot better after that loss to Houston last year, so we'll see where they are at that point. The one that worries me, and I don't want to admit this, but I think Baylor's gonna be really good next year. And don't tell Cam, and darn sure don't tell Drake. I think Baylor's gonna be really good next year, and so I see that one at the end of the season as like Baylor's gonna have a quarterback that could be having a big time year as a quarterback. They'll be looking to play for the Big 12 championship, trip to it, and that kind of stuff. And so that could be a tough game in Waco to end the season. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again. They're playing Houston and Baylor the Saturday after Thanksgiving, when it's officially Christmas season. Houston should wear red and Baylor should wear green. I'm going to say that again and again and again until they finally do it. But as I look at the schedule, I see this kind of thing being the thing that if the transfers go like I think they will, I think Wegman's a strong quarterback for this conference. I look at the Houston receiving core and feel pretty strong about it. Obviously, you lose Manjack, keep Boogie, bring in some key transfers from like Harvey Broussard and stuff like that. Offensive line looks better. Certainly, like more competition for spots. Which even if whatever you think about the guys coming in, competition for spots, bring out the best of the guys as well. Your defense returns a ton of talent. Carlos Allen, AJ Halsey, Jeremiah Wilson. And so while you're, just had a change in one of the DB coaches, I think you're going to keep a lot of the talent on that defense. I don't think it's crazy to look at the schedule and think, okay, like SFA, Rice, Oregon State, those should all be wins, non-conference wins. I think you should also look at this like, one of these home games, the Arizonas, the West Virginias, the TCUs, you're going to hopefully have a home crowd that drives you to them. Now we're at 4. You surprised some people last year a couple times, like against Kansas State and stuff like that. That no reason this team can't do that again. You're at 6 with whether it's UCF, at Arizona State, or at Oklahoma State. I think Colorado is the first Big 12 game of the season, September 13th. While there'll be a lot of primetime Deion Sanders hype in that, that's a home game early in the season. Humidity's going to play a factor, I'm sure. They're not from it like Houston is. You're very quickly at like 6, 7, 8 wins. And so while I want to fine-tooth comb this, and I want to go through and look at like each of the guys that Texas Tech brought in that could be big-time transfers, look at each of the guys that UCF has brought in that could be big-time transfers or whatever, I'm feeling pretty good looking at this, that it's the kind of schedule that Houston could easily find themselves bowl eligible at the end, if not like 8, 9. We'll see. The one awkward thing to me is that Houston is alternating home and road games throughout the entire season. Home against SFA, on the road at Rice, home against Colorado, on the road at Oregon State, home against Tech, at Oklahoma State, home against Arizona, at Arizona State, home against West Virginia, at UCF, home against TCU, at Baylor. That's weird. I guess that first month you're technically in the city of Houston 3 weeks in a row because you're at Rice for one of them, but that is weird. You're also playing in all 4 time zones. You play at Oregon State in September. You play in the Mountain time zone with the Arizona schools. You're playing the East Coast with at UCF. A little bit odd to play in all 4 time zones. That is the new Big 12. Anyway, breaking it down here as we get further into it. We'll be diving into it more this week. We got Big 12 squad. We're talking to Brian Smith about some recruiting stuff. And we got another basketball game this weekend. So lots to break down here at Locked On Coogs each and every day. Primarily Locked On podcast. I'm your team every day. Go Coogs.